Hello everyone and welcome to 9-inch Charge. Well, AOS 3 has been out for a little while now and there are events going on galore, lots of people, lots of games under their belts. It feels like it is in full swing now. And I thought I'd just do a little video about my experience with it so far, good and bad, and what we could see for this edition going forward. Just before we get into this, if you enjoy this video, please remember to drop it a like. It really means a lot to me and it helps people find the channel. And if you'd like to see more content like this in the future, if you're interested in Age of Sigmar discussion or the Old World discussion, please consider subscribing. The first thing I want to talk about is the core rules. And it's interesting because I can remember thinking the more we went away from 4 pages of rules, the more we might lose simplicity of the game and what made it quite fast paced and what made it quite easy to get into. And that was really something that I enjoyed about the Age of Sigmar, was just its accessibility. But actually now looking back, I think that there was just a guise of simplicity because all the rules that are captured in the battle tomes and all the rules that are captured in the war scrolls just add extra layers of complication. And then because there wasn't the clarity in the core rules, it just being 4 pages, things happened where people didn't know when they would strike in activation wars, and everything had to be covered in big FAQs. And then before you know it, you don't actually have a really good useful reference sheet in your rules. You've just got these 4 pages that don't tell you anything, and then you've got to go to your FAQ, and you've got to go to your battle tome, and you've got to go to your TO, and you've got to try and work these things out for yourselves. And I don't think this is ever going to go away. However, these rules are really precise and are really useful, and things, like I mentioned, like the activation wars, they tell you exactly how this works, and far from adding on needless layers of complication, the longer rule set actually takes away all this complication and it's just a really great reference guide. And the fact that it's got an index in the back where you can helpfully look things up, it's got a quick reference sheet in the back so you can find out your heroic abilities and command abilities and things like that. It's just really great, and it just helps streamline the game. It does everything that a rule set ought to do. So all in all, I'm really happy with the format and the fact that it has gotten bigger, even though initially I was a little bit worried. I also really appreciate the amount of effort that the rules team have gone to make this edition feel more interactive for both parties. I think that it's great that there's something for you to do in your opponent's phase. It's funny because I was talking only the other day to Jeremy on the Old World show about Warhammer Fantasy Battles and how Warhammer Fantasy Battles and Age of Sigmar, to an extent with a double turn, has had a feeling where when it's your opponent's turn, you might as well just go make a cup of tea or learn a foreign language. And it doesn't feel very interactive. It just feels very much like, you go, I go, and whilst your opponent's going, there isn't really a lot for you to do. And they've really been working hard at eliminating this problem. And all the things with the heroic actions and the monstrous rampages and stuff that's going on, and having titanic duels and being able to call out opponents' monsters and things like that is really helping. And I found that at events in particular, this has been great fun because often you're playing against someone who you don't know, and if you don't have a lot of interaction, it can begin to feel a little bit awkward if you're just, I'm doing this and I'm doing this and I'm doing this. But actually having this disruption, and it feels like you're playing the game together as players rather than just playing against your opponent's army. And that's such a fantastic change and so welcome. So far, I found the grand strategies and battle tactics fun as well. I'm not convinced that they're necessarily needed, but they do give you ways of getting extra points if you're not doing so great in the scenario, and sometimes the scenario can get away from you, so it's a good way for you to kind of stay in the game and score some extra things and do some heroic moments as well with your army. Things like Slay the Warlord are just fun, aren't they? I feel like the meta is already shifting, and there's going to be a little bit of rebalancing in people's armies and things like that, which is obviously inevitable. I think it's shifting mostly in 4 ways. The first one is Rend. I think this is a really big one. I think there's a lot of people now who are saying that if you have Rend 1, you may as well not have Rend because of all-out defense. You're still going to be going on against somebody's normal armor save, and it's very difficult to chip into someone's armor now unless you have at least Rend 2. I wonder if you'll see in new battle tomes coming out little ways for armies to be able to increase the Rend of their weapons, for example just on generals or something like that, on heroes. I'm not sure, but definitely the higher the Rend the better at the moment. So it does feel like some units are getting left behind at the moment. An example might be something like, for example, I play Cities of Sigmar, and Drakespawn Knights have a 3+ save, so with all out defense that'll go up to a 2+ save, which is really fantastic, really invaluable. And then if this is the kind of unit that we're going to see a lot more of, what space does something like a free guild guard with a hand weapon and shield have, who has got no rend on any of his attacks whatsoever, no way of causing mortal wounds, no way of getting rend? He's not really going to do a lot against those other than he's going to be a cheap body on the battlefield. Obviously, these are early days, so we don't know quite how it's going to go, how things are going to be rebalanced. We'll have to wait for the battle tomes to come out. I still think there's a place for cheap bodies on the battlefield, but if you want to be effective, the game doesn't quite feel as balanced in its units as it once did. And speaking of balance, there's definitely something looming over the game, and that is the impact of your god tier models. These are just getting better and better and much more valuable in your games. And why not? Some of them actually are gods, so they should make that kind of impact. They should reflect the lore as best they can. I sometimes feel like the best way to counter an enemy god is to bring your own god on the tabletop, and then we get this kind of spiraling up into kind of god hammer. And then it feels like if you haven't brought one of these kinds of god level monsters or heroes or unique characters, then you can get lost and you can get beaten back quite hard and quite significantly by not taking advantage of this. An example would be that the tournament that I went to recently at Curtin Games, every single player who played Order took Gotrek Gurnison. Every Daughters of Cain player took Marathi. Nearly every Chaos player took Archaon. The one that didn't took Be'lakor. It's getting to the point now where I think in casual games, if I'm going to agree to play someone, maybe we'd even have the discussion before if we're going to include god tier models or not, just because it is becoming so unbalanced that way. It doesn't really bother me for tournament play, because obviously in tournaments you do want to go and do your best, and it should be expected that people are going to bring their best and try their hardest. For narrative events or for casual games, I think it's wise just to have the discussion beforehand. The next two changes that I've noticed are monsters and priests. I think these are pretty obvious. Monsters is something that Games Workshop is pushing really hard. You get additional points in your battle tactics if monsters complete objectives. They've got monstrous rampages, and it's just something that they're pushing towards. And I think it's something that they want to see on the game just to help get a lower model count. If you invest your points in these bigger models, these more monstrous models, then you've got a lower model count overall, which is reflected in the smaller board size as well. And priests, there's something that have come up. I never really took a priest before, but now you're almost forced to, because you won't be able to disenchant any incantations unless you have a priest in your army. The incantations on their own at the moment aren't too powerful, so it's not the end of the world if you don't have one. But there are some things there, like the Sigor skulls, that used to go away naturally and now don't, and they can start, disrupting your magic phase and things like that. And if you don't bring a priest for protection, they're not going away. Luckily, there's some really cool priest models about. One change I would like to see is in the core rules, we've got the item, the Arcane Tome, which makes a unit a wizard. I'd quite like to see something that would make a unit a priest, and then that way, if you don't have a priest in your army or one that you don't particularly want to take, then you have access to making a unit a priest. It's just a small change, and maybe we'll see it, maybe we won't. So those are the kinds of winners and losers, in my opinion. And going forward, I'm sure the meta will shift again, and by the time we get to the end of AOS 3, the beginning will kind of be unrecognizable, and we'll be saying, oh, do you remember when this happened? Do you remember when that was what everybody did? It's just inevitable, and it's quite fun to see what's around the corner. I do worry that this edition is beginning to run out of steam before it's already kind of begun. This is because of delays that we've had with the books. I don't think it's Games Workshop's fault if you've got delays in shipping and another company has let you down. There's nothing you can do about it. It's just a shame that these battle tomes for Stormcast Eternals and for the Crawl Boys just aren't here yet. I know, for example, one person in particular I know has just recently gotten into the hobby. He's been really captured by the Crawl Boys, got the Dominion set, started painting them up, looking to play some games, and you can do all that off the bat with what you're given, but you can't really indulge yourself in it and get fully immersed unless you have your battle tome, and it's beginning to slow things up a bit. And I know the community is disgruntled. I would just say, look, this wasn't planned. I think they could have been more upfront about it rather than going back and just editing behind themselves, but we're just going to have to bear with it a little bit longer. As I said, it is a shame because we are beginning to lose momentum. We want to see some more releases and we want to see the books updated and everything like that, and it's a shame that it's just ready to go, but we are beginning to run out of steam a little bit, especially for these people who have got Crawl Boys and Stormcast. Because let's not forget the whole range that we were promised for Stormcast and for Crawl Boys. There's all these additional models that are going to come in and be released, and they're just not here yet. The next thing is the FAQ. So the FAQ was here and it's supposed to be mopping up all our problems and just making things easier so we can just carry on with our lives and play the games in a way that makes sense. I was thinking about making a video on the FAQ, but I just decided I was probably going to get too frustrated and I didn't really want to be that person. But suffice to say, despite everything positive I've been saying about the rules writers so far in this video, the FAQ was a letdown. Really strange things going on in there, especially the after saves and ward saves thing. I mean, what's strange about it is that there are some things that you would do in a game and you think, oh, well, this is going to get FAQ'd. And the prime example would be, for example, a Phoenix that's got a 4+ after save, then taking the Amulet of Destiny and having a 5+ ward save after that. And you'd think, well, that's going to get FAQ'd soon. That will get sorted out. But now you're able to do it because of an FAQ. And it just feels really backwards. And stuff like the Wildwoods missing a paragraph and stuff like that. I just don't know what's going on, really. And I know Sam Pearson was on Twitter saying that it was going to be rectified and it's stuff they're going to look into. But I just feel like, well, why didn't they look into it before they released the FAQ? I don't know if they'll just let it go or if there'll be an update to the FAQ kind of before the usual update to the FAQ. At the moment, we're just kind of in limbo waiting to see what Games Workshop will do about this. Another thing that we've been left in limbo with a bit is the AOS app. So the Age of Sigmar app that has all the war scrolls for all the units is no longer supported. Warhammer Plus has launched, but it is launched without an updated Age of Sigmar app. So if you want access to new rules for new units, you're kind of left in a bit of limbo. Like I said, we don't have the battle tomes yet. We don't have the app. It doesn't bother me too much that the app is now going to go behind a paywall. I appreciate, that it takes a lot of time and a lot of resources to create an app and get it out there and sort of stuff. If you're interested in my opinions on that, or just want to, know what's going on in general on how the rules changes are going to be, for example, in the new packaging for instructions, I did do a video called Paying for the AOS app, Does It Matter? So be sure to check that out. But in the meantime, it's another thing we're just left in limbo with missing out on battle tomes. FAQ doesn't feel complete. App not quite ready yet. Like I said, we might be running out of steam, which is a shame because everything I said in the beginning of the video, I really mean. And I do really genuinely love playing this game and love playing this edition. But this could all very easily be fixed within the next month or so. And then, we look back and we just say, oh, yeah, it faltered a little bit. We don't know that it's all Games Workshop's fault. I imagine the app's being made not in-house, the books are being shipped from elsewhere. What can you do? So those are my impressions altogether at the moment. Please let me know what your impressions have been. I'd be really interested to know what you guys are thinking about the game so far, how your games have been, what you've liked the most, if there's anything that you found a bit of a letdown. So please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you'd like to see more like this in the future, please subscribe. As ever, this has been 9 Inch Charge, and I will catch you next time.